Let us start the webinar. My name is Olena Gryniuk. I will be your host today. I'm the CE Director at the SME Banking Club. And today I'm joined, as you can see, by Katalin Kauzli, co-founder and business development director at Partner Hub, which is the invoice management system provider, and Christian Rümer, CEO and co-founder Qlana, SME lending software provider. Katalin and Christian, I'm happy to have you.
Yeah.
And yes, we decided to discuss today with all of you the topic of usage of invoice data in SME lending, and why we decided to bring this topic today. Well, first of all, together with Katalin, we've been discussing this topic in the context of factoring and invoice finance for years, I would say. And also this year, we did several practical workshops on the e-invoicing topic and integration of e-invoicing into the factoring process here in the CEE region within our VOA Digital project. And Katalin, of course, will show some examples from that later. And as invoicing data is becoming more accessible, it means that, for example, if we talk about our region, CEE, we have two countries, Hungary and Serbia, where electronic invoice data is already available for third parties via the APIs of tax authorities. And soon it will be available in Romania and Poland. And that's why, we are discussing this topic. And what does it mean? It means that invoicing data becomes available and becomes more attractive actually for SME lending. It can be a great alternative to traditional invoice finance and to traditional working capital lending. And I think it could bring even greater automation and real-time decision making, because the access to the invoice data will be real time. And of course, it could bring more convenience for SMEs. We don't have such examples of lending products in the region at the moment, but we do have some outside, so globally, let's say in other regions. So in these products, the receivables are not used only as collateral, but they form the foundation for credit decision process. And I think this could be a really great product for SMEs. So let's get deeper to this topic. On this note, Katalin and Christian, I'm passing the microphone to you. Please show your experience and your insights on that. And after that, let's discuss. And please, I invite all our attendees, please type your questions in the chat whenever you have them, and we will answer all of them. Let's make this session interactive.
Thank you, Olena. Just a brief intro why we are talking about invoicing, in addition to Olena what has already said. Approximately 80 plus countries in the world now who have invoicing regulation either already in place or on their roadmap. And there is an EU-wide regulation which will make B2B invoicing mandatory in the EU by 2030. So, this is coming, and this is not only coming in the number of countries and regulations, but also because of that, it is becoming more mainstream also in the webinars. So I just looked at the topics of the SME Banking Club and VOA digital webinars, and found that like this year and last year, 4 out of altogether 21 webinars were somehow related to invoicing. It might be more, I suppose, but these 4 were definitely dedicated to this topic. And and this is something that is really coming, and we also see an increased interest when we talk to potential customers or leads, that up until now it was mostly us explaining the importance of e-invoicing, but as regulations are coming, everyone starts to think about it more seriously, how they can use invoice data and invoicing and e-invoicing in their operations as well. Today, I would not go into the very technical details, because we, as Olena also mentioned, we have done a lot of webinars and we have a lot of material available online. And I also asked her to send the YouTube channel dedicated to this topic. And there is also an article series that we have already published together with Olena, which is available on the VOA digital website and also on Partner Hub website. So there is a huge amount of, I think, useful and relevant information out there in the internet. So if you don't find something today, then you can obviously ask us, but you can also check those sources. So this is the reason we are talking about e-invoicing again. And I would like to refer back to a previous webinar, which was done by Luis Rodriguez from Strands, which was in May, which was the recipe for transforming SME banking, which is data and non-financial services. And I really like the example of the layer cake, because I think it really represents well how, for example, e-invoicing and invoice data could add a lot of value for SME banking services. So as we talk about additional data sources, I will talk about more in detail later, but with e-invoicing, invoice data will be there. So you can use it as an additional data source. And invoice data as a rich data source can provide a 360-degree view of your business customers. If you see all the customer invoices, all the supplier invoices, thanks to the tax authority API, then you will see basically everything about your customer. And then this is not only the data layer, but invoicing and services related to invoices can provide very good basis for beyond banking services. So if we talk about SME banking and we talk about banks, then invoicing is definitely one of the first use cases that comes to mind, for various reasons, because it is connected to financial services, because it is part of the purchase to pay process. So it's really, and it helps a lot for SME customers. And then with the e-invoicing becoming mandatory, this is something that every business must do. So this is something that is, a kind of a no-brainer to do, but it's not an evident thing to do. So, but we won't talk about that today. We are focusing mostly on the data side and how you can use invoice data from third-party data sources. And so this is the SME banking side. And if we are going to the lending side, or platform lending or embedded lending, I also like these two slides where Luis showed that the key success factor for platform lending is data access and first-party data access. And he also mentioned the three data sources here: the e-commerce data, the payments data, and the accounting and invoice data. And if we take the e-commerce transaction data, I think that's great and the greatest data source. The only problem with that e-commerce companies are reluctant to share that data, so you cannot really access those data, because they like to keep it for themselves. With respect to the payments data, if you are a bank, you would already have it for your customers, or the other alternative that you can access it via open banking or data sharing scheme. So payments data is something that is already there, and you can use it as an input for your lending operations. And if we take invoicing and accounting data, now I will talk about the invoice data, and this will be accessible universally if there is any invoicing mandate for all businesses who are obliged to issue invoices. So this invoice data is there. You can get access to it either from the customer or from the tax authority or via data sharing scheme. So that's why we think that this will be, so invoice data will bring a new frontier to SME lending, and this is also the reason that we are talking about today and so much in general. As I already told, invoice data will be there, so you can access it. The other important advantage of invoice data that after invoicing it will be a structured and standardized data source, which makes it easy to handle and to work with it. So you don't need to use like very sophisticated algorithms to find out what is in the invoice data, because it is, it's defined in the data structure what is there. So it will be easy and straightforward to use. On the other hand, I read an article about invoicing, and if we are talking about a simple invoice, that can be, let's say, 20 data fields. But if we are talking about the whole standard, invoice data can contain up to 2,000 data fields. So you can see that in 2,000 data fields, a lot of information can be put about the customer and also about the business transaction itself. So this is really very good data source. So my argument here is that everyone should start think about how they could use invoice data in their lending operations. And how can you get access to invoice data? The first is invoice data can be embedded into the invoice itself. And this would mean that you would ask your customers to upload their invoices. There are pure structured data invoices, and there are the so-called hybrid invoices where the invoice data is embedded in the PDF version of the invoice. Anyways, these would be the individual invoices containing the invoice metadata could be uploaded onto your system, and then you as a lending company could start working with the invoice data. The other option is that you integrate with the issuing system. That could be an online invoicing system, an accounting system, or an ERP. So that is something that can be done, and we will also show you examples who has already done that. And the third option is that you have access to tax authority APIs or data sharing schemes, such as the account aggregator in India. So these will be the ways that you can get access to invoice data of your customers. And going back a little bit to the platform lending and how better data enables lending and lending growth, I would like to briefly introduce or talk a little bit about the Indian data sharing scheme called the Account Aggregator Scheme. This is an open finance data scheme enriched with invoice data, because like we in Europe have the PSD2, we will have the PSD3, but the PSD3 will not also contain the invoice data sharing scheme. The Indians also integrated the Indian Tax Authority returns as well into the scheme. So whoever accesses these account aggregators can have access to the invoice data of their customers. So here the two things are packaged together. And these are last year's statistics, but the account aggregator scheme was launched in 2021, and you can see the trends. So the left unsecured business loan is the interesting thing for us. You can see the trends that in like 3 years time, or 2 years time, the volumes already doubled the lending volume. So, better data, better access to data helps financing companies and also customers in the way that if you have a new data source, such as the invoice data, then those customers who could not get access to formal financing previously, and this is a big amount of companies in India, those can be included in the formal financing after the introduction of such a scheme. So I think this is also a very important point, that if you have invoice data as an additional data source, and as Olena mentioned, if we don't talk only about the factoring product, but also a more general cash flow based lending, then if you see the transactional data of your customers in the invoices, then new customer segments can appear, and you would be also willing to finance those customers who you wouldn't have done before. And I think this will be also a comment or room for Christian, who will explain to us how this could be done in the future. And the other thing I would like to mention is that last year we did a survey in India about the usage of invoice data for cash flow based lending. This survey is not a representative survey. However, I think it shows the trends very well, that if the data is available on the market, if invoice data is available on the market, then people will start using it. So when we asked about that, whether they use invoice data in lending operations, then already the majority of people responded that they already use it, and the other 1/3 responded that they don't use it currently, but they plan to use it. So definitely, if the data is there, then people will start using it. And I will also show the international examples, both from Central Eastern Europe and other regions, that if invoice data is there, people will start using it, and it will become the new mainstream thing. So just to say that from 2 years back or 3 years back, there were less examples. Now I think we have more and more examples, and in a couple of years, I think really it will also become the mainstream thing to do. Another question was that what is the purpose of using invoice data? And most people responded in the survey that they would use the invoice data for credit risk assessment. This will also be the topic for Christiane, how it can be done. Another very important example or very important use cases to check the invoice authenticity. I think this is especially important for factoring. And this is a very big advantage of tax authority APIs and e-invoicing schemes that once the customer submits the invoice, it can be treated as an authentic invoice. It can still, be a tricky invoice, but as you will see the whole history of the invoice document, and you can check the relationships with the customers and the suppliers, relationships of your customer, then it will make much more difficult to make tricks with the invoices. We can say from our own examples in Hungary that the VAT gap has significantly decreased after the introduction of the real-time data submission to the tax authorities. And as the VAT gap decreases, this will mean that the invoices submitted, like only a fraction of those invoices will not be really authentic invoices or will be bogus invoices. And the other or third use case is the lending workflow digitalization. I will talk about more in detail a little bit later on, but this is a straightforward thing to do. If you have the structured invoice data in place, then you can integrate it very easily with your systems and start using the data as they are now. And if we talk about invoices also, it is also an important factor when those invoices are paid. And the survey respondents responded mostly that they consider somehow the payment patterns of invoices when making the credit assessment for their customers. And the last question here was that what are the sources of invoice data currently and in the future? And so respondents equally responded that each of the three modes, like individual upload of invoices, integration with the invoicing software, or the tax authority APIs, play an important role. I think what is interesting that the API usage and the integration with the invoicing software grows, while the individual upload of invoices is becoming less important in the future. Obviously, if you have the method for how to automate your processes, then the individual upload of invoices will be less important, although you always have to allow your customers to do the things manually as well. Another survey that was done by Olena last year for the digital factoring survey in the CE region. You can see here two questions regarding the sources of invoice data and the invoice upload options. And the integration with the invoicing systems and tax authorities. You can see that with respect to the tax authorities, it was only two solutions among the survey respondents who already did the integration with the tax authority, and that was in Hungary. I expect that this year the results will also show Serbia and maybe Romania as well. And from next year, I think Poland will be also on this graph with the tax authority integration. So this will be very interesting to see how this evolves over time. But you can see that whoever does not have the tax authority API started already the integrations with the invoicing systems and ERP systems as well. And you can see on the left-hand figure that fintechs are more advanced in this respect than banks, but already banks also started using invoice data as a data source. Just a couple of examples from the CE region, and I won't go into the details because we have talked about it and we will talk about it. Like KNH Bank launched a solution in Hungary which uses the tax authority data. The same was done by Ceflink in Serbia, which integrated with instant factoring. And I would like to encourage Dénes and Pavle, if they have any comments on the topic, please share your views on the topic, because I see that you are in the audience. So these are already happening. The other use case integration with the invoicing software was done by, for example, by Flexibil in Hungary, who is BAFactor integrated with the largest online invoicing system called Számlász.hu. And they also told that they have a good experience with the integration. Tamás will be also there in the conference, and they will present the use case more in detail in the conference. So I think you can ask about the actual experience and the rationality of doing that. And in Poland, ING did the same. So you can generate an invoice on their invoicing platform and start the financing right from there without logging into the factoring solution of ING Bank. So these are the Central European examples. I put a couple of examples from around the world. I found that Westpac in Australia integrated with QuickBooks. So that is the tax authority integration. Confio is a Mexican company who uses the tax data or invoicing data from the Mexican tax authority. So you can see that this is also happening in other regions as well. In Mexico, e-invoicing is already mandatory for a while. So this is already there. I think there are examples from South America where e-invoicing has a long history already. I also found BNPL, business BNPL option where Evoca Pay integrated with the Xero's platform to provide BNPL for businesses. And Clear is an Indian example. They started as an invoicing and tax filing solution in India, but they expanded into the invoice financing space. So you can see how crucial invoice data can be in actually starting a new business division. If you have the invoice data, then you can build on other use cases as well. So these are a couple of examples. In last years, we showed some other examples. I would like to stress here, as I already mentioned, that use cases are becoming more and more. So you will find them more frequently all around the world. And yeah, how you can use invoice data in your lending operations. I made three categories here. So you can use invoice data for sales and customer onboarding. And this means that you can start doing embedded financing. So either you can integrate with an invoicing solution, or you can launch your invoicing solution. And when the invoice is issued, then you can initiate the financing already. So you will have information when the invoice is created, and then you can provide the financing in that moment, because that is the thing that the SME needs the money when it has already an invoice that needs to be paid. The other thing is that the operations can be digitalized, and fully digital processes can be built if you have the invoice data as a structured data source, if you have the integration with the either with the invoicing software or with the tax authority data, then you can push that data to your system directly, and then a lot of manual processes can be ruled out. So the customer only needs to tick the invoices which they want to finance. Or if we are talking about the integration with ERP software for bigger companies, then already rules can be defined which invoices should be pushed to your credit management system. And the last topic is risk, where I will hand over the word to Christian. It's just one more thing I would like to mention is that I put a maturity pot meter below the certain categories. So I think that the sales and customer onboarding thing have already started along with the operation. So if you start using the invoice data, then these are the two things that we could see the examples. Honestly, I have not seen any. There might be examples, but I have not seen any example working when there would be a proper risk model or a new type of credit risk model that would use invoice data as an input. And that will be the point where I hand over the word to Christian to explain to us how it can be done in the future, and what would it take to do that, to build such a new model.
Great. Thank you, Katalin. This is great. So thank you all for joining the webinar. My name is Christian Rummer. I am representing Culana, and I just wanted to give you first a quick overview on risk assessment and rating, and see how the invoicing and invoicing information can really fit in. Yeah, because risk is, first of all, every banker, every financial institution, every fintech, we make money by taking risk. Yeah, and a lot of methodologies rank around risk management. So really, I'd like to show you that there is a very basic concept of risk, which is just understanding that we have a risk somewhere in our business, because that's the source of income. And the very basic part is just to understand what is the risk that we're taking, how frequent are we taking the risk, how frequent can a risk event happen, and what's the severity of that. And let's have a look at an invoice where each individual amount is quite small. So the severity of an invoice per se is very, very low. If you look at risk evolution inside a financial institution, we always talk about rating and scoring methodologies. And here as well, there are very simple methodologies and there are very sophisticated methodologies. Simple start with just analyzing transaction data, with just demographic information. As you are evolving as a financial institution, you can look more at the past performance, actual performance, look more at financial information or economic data to develop your own scoring model. And here again, the question is, what do you expect from a scoring model? You could have a simple traffic light that simply says, I like the transaction, I don't like the transaction, or I like to look deeper into that. And then you can, over time, evolve your rating and your scoring system to a really risk-adjusted return calculation. If you are a financial institution, your target needs to be to really look at a risk-adjusted return so that you can allocate a specific risk appetite to a counterpart. So that you, for example, have an SME customer, and you know that this SME customer is good for a $50,000 credit risk. And now then thereafter, you can allocate this credit risk to a working capital loan, invoice discounting, a credit card, or a CapEx loan. That is your target structure. Now, how does the invoicing data come into that? First of all, you are in a situation where you already have existing customers and you might have an excess risk appetite for these customers, so you can offer them the invoice discounting. So you can basically use the available risk limits that you have towards the providing of invoice discounting or invoice financing. Or you use it as another source of information, particularly when you talk about the smaller SMEs, the MSMEs basically, where your audited financial information might be existing, but it might not be perfectly well, plus it might be dated. We are now having end of September. What is the value of your end of 2024 financial statements? If you do a credit analysis today, the business might look completely different. On the other hand, if you really look at SMEs or smaller SMEs, 3 key items are relevant for your credit analysis: invoices, inventory, and payroll. Now, with the invoices, access to the invoices, you already have information around your invoicing, then also a little bit about the inventory because you see what this person is purchasing. So the additional information is very helpful. And if you then add payroll as a third part of information because you're offering your customers accounts, then you have the best possible, most current information to assess anyway. How sophisticated your model is, there is no perfect credit risk model out there, and everything needs to be evolved because that is your core strength. You need to build that credit risk assessment the same way like a soccer team puts together 11 players and practices to become a united team. That is how you develop your risk system. But again, invoicing is an essential factor because it's probably the indicator of the most current information about the day-to-day activities that you have from an SME. So whether you offer this now as a tool to your existing customers or whether you open this up to gain new customers, it's valuable anyway. And how you integrate that really depends on the level of sophistication that your risk management structure is already available. This just is a very brief part because the topic here is invoice discounting. I just want to make you comfortable that any information that you get is adding value to your risk management business. Back to you, Kathleen.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I hope that in 1 or 2 not only be a dream or a concept that we would like to implement in practice, but there will be practical examples already on the market where invoice data is used. I would like you so I would like to almost finish up the presentation and open up the room for questions and discussions. Just a brief mention of how Partner Hub can help you with implementing the usage of invoice data. So we can help you enable third-party data access. We can do everything around the invoice data management and invoice presentment part. So anything you want to do with the invoice data, we have pre-built solutions which are configurable with a low-code, no-code approach to suit your processes. And we can also provide value-added services like reconciliation of invoice data and the payment data, so that you can assess the customer and the relationship of that customer. And finally, so I think this is it. Let us give the room for questions.
Yes, please type your questions or comments as well in the chat, because we would like to know your opinion as well. And thank you, Katalin and Christian. This topic is hot, I would say. And Christian, if come back to the risk management, do you think, or can we say that SME lending, which will be based on the real-time receivables and maybe transactional data as well, would be less risky than the traditional, let's say, working capital lending that we have now, which is, as you mentioned, based on the financial data from the last financial year and transactional data maybe as well.
Look, it's the most current piece of information about an operation that a company is doing, because they are paying their invoices, and you can take a very simple statistical analysis about the frequency of payments, the counterparts, and so on. So if you like to know the actual status of the operation, a customer, an SME who actually pays invoices, there's in our environment, there is no better information for credit analysis than these invoice information next to the payroll, maybe. So therefore, giving a loan or financing this customer, or financing the invoices of this customer, is really a first and easy step to gain access to credit limits. In a second step, of course, you use this all for your analysis of larger loans, but also based on the fact that you see some patterns. But there's no easier risk than invoice discounting.
Yeah. Can I have a question also to Christian? So what is the minimum time period that you would need to have as for the access of invoice data?
Honestly, that really depends on your market and depends on your appetite. If you are established in the country, and if you see the invoices going to a serious company inside your region, if you see this as a supplier, or this is even in the worst case, if it's an agricultural producer who basically sells his harvest to an aggregator, and you know the aggregator, then you don't even need a lot of experience in that. You can almost go out and say within an opening, and you verify that indeed this vendor is selling to this aggregator. You can start within a couple of days, actually. If it comes to more complicated situations where you don't know exactly the counterparts, you don't know exactly who is dealing with whom, you don't know the business very well, it might take you a little bit longer. But I would say, given your risk appetite, maybe you are already a financer to the aggregator. You are a financer to the larger company. Then providing a credit line to the supplier is a very easy, straightforward business activity. I mean, very easy. Look, when I say very easy, I mean this within scopes. I'm a trained risk manager. If I say easy, that doesn't mean that you just throw out the money, but it means that the process of approving that is very straightforward.
But let's say I am a fintech. I am an innovative fintech, and I am new to a market. What would you suggest in that case?
So this is, apologize for coming up a very general point here. This is more driven by the fact that I've seen a lot of fintechs. If your fintech is basically driven by you understanding better technology, I'd be a little bit careful. If your fintech comes from you understanding your own market, you understanding your ecosystem, where the companies are operating in, then you can go faster. So if your fintech idea, if your fintech business is born out of you having done a couple of programming classes and now know how to apply that.
No, I mean, I am talking about like a proper fintech who knows the business, right?
No, but if you say, if you come with a local experience, if you come with hiring maybe 1 or 2 loan officers who have done this business for banks in the past, so that you understand the relationships, then it's very fast.
We had one question at the beginning of Katalin, your presentation, and I would like to ask actually both of you. It was that, Katalina, if I choose the slide correctly, yes, that if we use the structured invoice data, then it bring up to 2,000 data fields. And the question that we had is, don't you think that this is too much? And my question to both of you, can we really have a situation when we have too much data for credit assessment of SMEs in general?
I would like to answer the first part of the question. So it's like up to 2000 data fields, right? And then that would contain like detailed addresses and let's say like 3 types or 4 types of addresses. So that is the maximum that the for example, the UBL standard contains. It doesn't mean that you must have 2000. It was just, I just wanted to show that from 20, so between 20 and 2000, anything can be contained, because if we are talking about special industries, let's say, I don't know, oil or alcohol or something like that, there would be special codes for the products and the items, and special data attached to the transaction type, and so on and so on. So I just really wanted to show that it's a good data source, and you can know a lot of things about if you look at an invoice. And then the other thing is for Christian. Too much, I don't think that today is too much. It's not too much, because you can select, and then you can
prioritize
select
the sources. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's really a question of selecting, and it's really a question of and also of understanding the underlying business. Yeah, I'm not a great friend of behavioral data. Yeah, how long does somebody take to look at a questionnaire, or how long does somebody spend on a specific website? That's not an indication. But there are so many other areas where you can really understand the data and have access to this information and then test it is another aspect. So the data alone and a pure data analyst on your at hand is a good precondition, but really a logical understanding of the business. Yeah, if something sounds unusual, it normally is unusual. This kind of understanding of the business is essential for then selecting which data points you are using, and maybe getting better the more information you have. Because if some client indeed processes 99%, 95% of his invoices through your system, then of course the analysis of data points makes much more sense than if it is an occasional user. If I'm using PayPal twice a year, there's no way you can derive any kind of behavioral pattern from that. If I do PayPal for everything, then of course there is another business.
Yeah. And probably to wrap up, and we have the last question. Yes, that's Katalin, it will be to you to say a little bit more in detail about the integration with the Hungarian tax authorities, how it was done, and what were the players for factoring, for invoice finance industry right at the moment.
Yeah, so first of all, the first prerequisite that the tax authority must provide an API through which it makes this data accessible. The Hungarian example was that real-time data reporting was started back in 2018 and was made fully mandatory for B2B transactions in 2020. And so there was a central API published by the tax authority, and all invoicing software and all ERP software companies had to upgrade their systems to be able to communicate with the tax authority system. So there was a push of data to the tax authorities, and after a while, the tax authority allows not only the pushing but also the querying of the invoices. And if the ERP system or the invoicing system enable the pushing, most of the ERP systems enable the query function of the APIs, and the tax authority enabled the query of the invoice data for both the customer invoices and supplier invoices. So now what happens is that most of the accounting is done kind of automatically, because the accounting software already pulls the tax authority data. The accountants still ask for the PDF invoice, but they just want the evidence that it's there and that you really want to account for it, because it can be a case that I have a small company, I bought something in Bauhaus, okay, so that's an example, and I asked for an invoice, but I made up my mind and I told my accountant that, okay, I don't want to put this specific invoice into my VAT report. So what would happen is that the data sits there in the tax authority because the invoice was issued, but I can still decide that, okay, I am not reporting this as a cost of my business because, I don't know, I bought something that that doesn't really, I don't know, belong to my operations, but I just thought that, I would still ask for an invoice. So these are the things that, invoice data is there, but if you are doing the reporting, then you can still decide if you want to include that specific invoice in your VAT recording. And what else was also done for the factoring example, that there is a factoring software company that serves the majority of the market in Hungary, and they implemented this API connection with the tax authority. So what happens is that the factoring software is able to receive the data, and that is very important, a very important part, because some of the integrations we did, the factoring software was not able to consume the invoice data through an API, so that is a prerequisite to do, so that your factoring system or loan management system is able to receive structured invoice data, and then it becomes easy, because once the invoice data in your system, then everything goes the way it normally goes. So these are the things that has to be done on the tax authority side, on the business side, and the factoring software side.
Yes, and maybe to add that this is relevant for domestic invoices, right? So
at the moment, yes.
Yes.
At the moment, yes. But like cross-border invoicing will also come, and most of the invoicing schemes are based on the EU standard, and other global invoicing schemes on the UBS standard, which are very similar to each other, so data transformations can be done. So if you have a UBL invoice, it doesn't matter whether it was issued in the US or it was issued in Romania. If you have the standardized invoice data in the UBL, then you would still be able to finance the invoice as a global company. So, this is true that this is for domestic invoices, but because of the usage of standards by the tax authorities, it's not very difficult to use invoices from other jurisdictions as well.
And we have the last question on the whether the solution that you are talking about could be used for financing invoices in the secondary market. I think with the correlation with the blockchain technology, which is, I think, an absolutely different story.
Yes, but I think the invoice data is there. It doesn't matter if it's on the primary or secondary market. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, will be interesting. All right. I think we can wrap up today's session. Thank you very much for all our attendees for being active and being till the very end. And I do encourage you, if you are interested in this topic, to contact Katalin and Christian, both because they could help you for a technical setup and also for risk management models. And yes, Katalin reminded that we are now together doing the survey on how now you use invoice data in your processes and credit decision processes. And I will share also this link in the follow-up email when we finish this webinar. And we will be grateful if you could share also your thoughts with us. And of course, we will share the results in October. Thank you very much. And next time we discuss this topic in 2 months at the C25 SME Banking Conference in Warsaw. So welcome and come to Warsaw, join us online, because both Katalin and Christian will be there, and also SME, digital SME lenders and factoring companies from the region. So you're welcome to come and also network and get the insights from the first hand. So thank you very much and see you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.